Okay, this is Tad Street with Positive Out Loud. Today I have a very special guest, and I'm honored to have you on the show. Mr. Kenneth Close, he has quite a background. I want him to explain to you a little bit about what he has done and where he is now. But right now he is what's called, this is very unique, it's called an epigenetic coach, and he helps people transform their lives. So Ken, can you tell me a little bit about where you were and then how you became this coach?
Yeah, absolutely, Tess. Thank you. Appreciate the question. So where I was, well, once upon a time, I was a twinkle in my daddy's eye, but we want to go back that far. No, honestly, my life's journey has been quite interesting. I'm a former military Army guy, flight operations in an air combat unit. Amazing. I would not trade that for the world.
I was Army.
Army, right on.
Yeah, I was a lab tech. Yeah.
I got a chance to see the world. Went to some pretty exotic places as an air combat unit. We were rapid deploy, went all over the place, from Egypt to Honduras to the deserts of Texas. So it's like all over the place. I started my own business. I went into engineering school, so I became my degree is electronics engineering, but I started my own business in the fitness industry. This was way back when there was, the people. Today we have probably about maybe 10% of the population that uses that exercises at home, or it's growing, but then it was about 3%, and so home fitness started to grow, and the need for service started to also grow. And when I was in electronics school, when I was in engineering school, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up, but I knew I didn't want to work in a cubicle. So I took a job as a service tech for an exercise equipment fitness sales company. And that just turned into a great avenue for me, because my office was literally everybody's house or a fitness center or somewhere else. Mm-hmm. I got to travel around and got to take care of customers personally. I love relationships, so that fed my soul. Worked a lot. It worked really well. I worked for those guys for about 10 years, about 9 years, I guess. And I said, you know what? I think we can expand this. Let's do more than just who we sell. Let's try to take this around the country, maybe other states. And they didn't really want to do that. They just wanted to service what they wanted to service. I said, well, I'll make you a deal. I'll quit. I'll start my own business, and I'll support your customers and build an empire. And they said, okay. So that was the beginning of my business. I created a business around that tech support in the fitness equipment arena. Grew that into 3 states, sometimes 4 states. And I felt like I was serving a lot of people. It felt pretty good. And yet at the end of the day, I felt that there was still something missing. I was supporting a lot of folks. I was helping them in their fitness. And I was, really good with the exercise equipment. I could fix anything. My motto was, if I can't fix it, it's not broken. And so I was like, but I got to a point of complacency, and that meant that my business was doing great. I had a fitness equipment sales store and employees and all that, but yet I felt like there was still a missing component. And I just got to where going and doing the job, putting on the uniform, just didn't light my soul anymore. Didn't make my heart shine. So one day I stood, and be careful when you create an amazing intention that there's going to be an answer. And I stood in my kitchen one day and just kind of put my hands up, looked up, and said, you know what? I surrender. And I said, I give up my perceptions, beliefs, procedures, habits mold me, right? I had no idea what that meant.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah. I had no idea what that meant. I just knew that I didn't feel like I was serving to the best of my capacity. My body was, I was a martial arts instructor as well. So I taught Taekwondo for, 2 decades. I was a master instructor, owned my own business, family, everything. From the outside looking in, it might have looked like was pretty okay. But from the inside of me looking out, I was just, I felt like I was just biding time and not really serving this life the way I thought I was meant to. So,
So you weren't really as fulfilled as you wanted to be where you were.
yeah, it was, you can't, sometimes something's wrong, but you may not be able to put your finger on it,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing. And that's what I felt like I was at. Couldn't really put my finger on it, but I knew something was there was more to do. And as a result, that question started leading to some very interesting answers. Everything from another product I added into my store, which was a nutritional line that's taught me a lot about even deeper into the chemistry of the body. And I started to support people on that side. And it also took me into a personal development avenue, which led me down introduced me to some great people like Gregg Braden and Bruce Lipton. And I wound up going to an event where I was really interested in Gregg Braden and listen to his lecture. And there was another gentleman there by the name of Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I had no idea who he was.
Oh, I love him. Yes.
But the moment he got up on stage, I'm like, okay, I got to see what's going on. I got all of his books. At that time, he only had a couple of books and a few CDs, and I dove into that. And
But this was when he was here, right? Because he's from Washington State, right? Okay.
he is, yeah. He was. He has a chiropractic practice. In fact, it's still there. He just doesn't run it over on that side of the mountains. Yeah, but yeah, he did a lot of his events right there in the Seattle area, and I started diving into those events, and suddenly it changed. I didn't fit the model of reality that I had been painting myself into for so long, and I I started to change my understanding on how to serve other people. Dove into more of the science of the brain, and that's what Dr. Joe's a lot about science, and really learned a lot about epigenetics, the influence of the cell outside the cell, the environment. Again, Bruce Lipton talks a lot about that. And I started realizing what we can do by thought alone, by energy alone, and what that meant. And the influence was tremendous. And so I started a mastermind group, started some coaching stuff. I no longer fit that old model of my business. My business at that time was 18 years old. And I just started drilling it down. I started, things just aligned perfectly where I could get out of my lease for my store. I could get the employees were searching and reviewing other avenues, and I was encouraging them, and it just, everything lined up. I didn't have to fire anybody. I didn't have to battle any battles to get out of where I didn't belong and start to progress and evolve into where I did belong. That's how it's supposed to be, right? It really is.
So how did you create that? I mean, what things were you doing differently compared to where you were before?
So again, that question, when you have a clear intention, that statement, mold me, I surrender. The whole point is surrendering things that no longer fit, or you don't even have to know they don't fit, but just start surrendering these systems that you've been rehearsing decade after decade, and when they don't fit, when something doesn't fit, it doesn't matter what it is, and you don't have to know the definition, but you just stop doing the same things over and over again, expecting a different result, because that's crazy, right? So I stopped doing the same things. I started to let go of the things that were more ego-driven things, such as my desire for money, to get every job I could get, to close every deal I could close, to more dropping from my head down into my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And that started to make a big difference. Just that 10-inch shift, letting go of these old belief structures that I had to be in control. Right. And believe me, first of all, Army combat, martial arts instructor, business owner, and then you put man on top of that. It was like ego driven, and that was not an easy process because even as an engineer brain, I was analytical to the T, and as you start to learn neuroscience, you learn that the more analytical we are, the less creative we are. It's an inverse proportion.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to start surrendering a lot more, being curious, dropping into my heart, learning these practices, these modalities. Meditation was a huge piece that started to come into my life.
And what type of meditations are you doing? The Dr. Joe meditations or others, or?
Yeah, my primary meditations practice has been with Dr. Joe and his work, guided meditations. And I recommend that all the time because I believe that, a book that changed my life early in that mix was Understanding the Mind. And that was Michael Singer's book, The Surrender Experiment. And I'm sorry, Untethered Soul. That's the one. Untethered Soul.
Untethered Soul. It is so amazing that I've heard that book for the past couple months, like 5 times. So I guess I have to get it.
There's a philosophy that when you are first offered, it's called the incident. There's an incident that somebody tells you about something or something happens to you. That's the incident. What happens for the second time that is similar, yet from a different avenue, it's called a coincident, right? And then the third time it's offered to you, it's what's called undeniable. And it's like, okay, you can't, get past this anymore. You got to pay attention. So if you've had it 5 times, what's that say?
I know.
So anyway, the Untethered Soul gave me an understanding, a deeper understanding about this inner roommate and this mind that was constantly my partner, and yet I was always trying to. I thought it was either trying to damage me or I was trying to get rid of it, and so meditation wasn't really my thing until Dr. Joe started to talk. His work is guided, so it helps. I think it helps the person that's getting started to get beyond some of the monkey mind and be able to just focus and put your awareness on something else. And he guides you very well into that process. So that gives me a lot of ability to get beyond myself. And his book, it's his second book, which is called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Another phenomenal book that changed my life. I mean, those two are amazing in terms of anyone trying to restructure the things, the habits, the beliefs, perceptions, and behaviors that have got you stuck. So that was kind of this journey as I studied more with Dr. Joe and started to serve in another way from the heart. It rewired my biology and giving even more solidification to how thought, feeling, and actions change your physical expression, the epigenetics effect. So that's kind of the journey so far.
Yeah, I do have to say, I totally agree with you because I've gone to a lot of different workshops, a lot of different healing modalities, tried many things. And once I finally was led to Dr. Joe, I mean, things just really opened up for me after that. I mean, so many things manifested in my life that pretty unbelievably quickly after I went to a week-long event and went through his whole online workshop and that sort of thing. And then once you get from here to here, I mean, life is just infinite from there, right?
That's right. That's right. The 10-inch drop from the head to the heart. They're of course a pair. We've got to understand how they coexist, but we are so much in the head for our entire lives, and it's just a survival mechanism. And sadly, it just does not serve us well. And when we start to really drill down what it means to create the best version of ourselves, then we start discovering the heart.
So tell us a little bit so everybody knows out there, what are some of the habits that you have that you like to do on a daily basis to keep you in that space?
Yeah, so there's two windows in our circadian rhythm in which the subconscious and the conscious tend to be the closest paired. And that's early in the morning, prior to when we're shifting out of that theta state of sleep, as we transition up towards alpha and then finally into beta. There is a window, a door of opportunity in which we can bridge the conscious and the subconscious. And then that similar state starts to appear again, based on our circadian rhythm. And again, this is all based on light, so the optic nerve, when our eyes receive light, or receive or no light, there are over 400 systems going on and off within our biology, within our body, just because of light. So the morning light starts to come up, systems are shifting and changing. So is that transfer from the different frequencies of the brain. And same thing happens at night, as the sun goes down, same kind of transition, and we have that opportunity. So I take those opportunities in the morning to create a day, to create a state of being. And ideally, one would take advantage of the sunrise, right? And sometimes I have to get up before that because I've got other obligations. But there is a moment of time around the 4 a.m. Is where we're really still high. At 4 to 7 a.m. we're still high in the melatonin, the neurotransmitter that is the elixir, the fundamental cocktail for creation. I mean, it is what can dim down all of the analytics. It can upregulate the illusions and the visual aids for creating an experience. It does amazing things when we use it correctly. But we have to take advantage of the time in which the sun's rising, and our natural systems are promoting that. So anywhere from, my awareness taps on my shoulder around 3:20 a.m.
Oh, wow.
Now sometimes I say, no, I'm not ready. I don't want to get up right now. Sometimes, because lately I'm just barely getting to sleep, when I'm, but sometimes I will, a lot of times I will become aware. I will wake up, or not really wake up. I try not to actually wake up, but I just go into that awareness state. And then that's that bridge. That's that moment in which you sometimes aren't sure if you're awake. Sometimes you're not sure if you're asleep, and you can make suggestions there. And the suggestions I make are to be of best service to myself, and to find my heart. So what am I grateful for is a great way of finding my heart. Just saying, wow, I'm aware that I'm alive, and I don't rehearse what I look like. So first thing in the morning, no lights. I don't rehearse what I look like. I don't jump on my phone or check my WhatsApp or my email. I'll plug in a meditation a lot of times. Sometimes I don't. It's, we don't have to have a real rigid system to first just be grateful in the morning, take advantage of that creative elixirs that are going on with our mind to imagine some best case scenario. But what do we usually do a lot of times? Wake up and, oh, there's that ache, or, oh my gosh, that's right, I didn't pay that bill, or yesterday's argument still lingering in my mind. And we rehearse yesterday, and so yesterday's imprint gets put right onto the present moment so that we can predict our future, and suddenly we're the same. We haven't grown, we haven't changed, we haven't done anything. Mm-hmm. And that's not creating your state. That's just rehearsing the past. So by spending that moment in the morning, being grateful for what you do have, or grateful for what you can do, that starts to set the stage for a constant creation, and it literally changes every cell in your body. It actually tells the cell of the body that it has a purpose, that it has a calm demeanor because you're not in agitated state. You're not in that fight or flight mechanism. So it does tremendous things for biology. And then suddenly through the day, what happens to that cell structure, to that body, it has more liberated energy, which would normally have been consumed by stress and disorder, to create and build. So you feel like you can conquer the world, right? It changes the way that your day pans out. So that's a big one and very important. I think that every day that should be that way. And then at the end of the day, the last part is I often I'll listen to a meditation, and even if I fall asleep during it, and I do this purposefully, I'll lay down in bed, I'll turn the meditation on, and it might only be a 30-minute meditation, but it usually involves some kind of breathing, so that I can keep my body focused and aware of my breath. And I will just appreciate the day. Just what did I do well, and if I had one more chance, what would I do maybe a little bit different, right? And that's just another operating system to give the biology a blessing or a moment of gratitude again, to say you did a good job.
And kind of a reflection of the day, right? Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Reflection of your day. And then just honor the good things you did. So that celebration, life loves celebration. It kind of gives you more to celebrate when you do that. If we use our imagination to break things apart or stress on what's broken or what we don't have, life will offer more of that. So,
mm-hmm.
So yeah.
And that spaciousness comes a lot from being out in the nature. So do you get out and about a lot and do a lot of movement out there?
Yeah, well, I haven't for the last, not as much as I have since we've been in this fun little, although I don't feel locked down at all. I mean, we have a huge yard, I can go out, walk the dogs, run the dogs, whatever. We, living in Spokane where I'm at, you can't throw a stone any direction, not hit a lake, a river, a stream, or a pond, something. So it's beautiful around here. And I purposefully own safari rigs. I mean, everything I have, I think, is 4-wheel drive, so I can go to, and I do. And now with the kids being out of school, we've again, you mentioned manifestations, manifesting things in our lives. The kids for 2 years, maybe longer, almost 3 years. I mentioned homeschool, and some of our friends have homeschooled, and the kids is like, man, I would love to do that, Dad. Let's do that, and with my business and with my wife working full time, I was like, well, how do we do that? How do I figure this out? Well, again, be careful. When you start being curious about life, it figures it out for you. And so sometimes the gestation period is very long. It takes a long time for that thought to become a thing. Mm-hmm. But eventually, I'll bet if anyone that listens to this show or thinks about their own life, if they just took 1 second to pause and think about the things that they wanted in their lives, and when it first was thought of, and then finally somewhere in their lives when it actually manifested, that's called the gestation period. And always it does show up. It's just when we get really clear and really good at our intentions, it shows up in a quicker time, right?
And so do you find yourself, say during the day, if you get agitated or maybe upset or something, do you find yourself able to be aware of that quickly than you had before because of all this work you've done for yourself?
Yeah. So I call that course correction. I'm a do, evaluate, course correct kind of guy. So I mean, sometimes I'm the guy who, I literally, when I told you about quitting my job and starting a business, I quit my job, started a business, and bought my house in the same month. So it's like,
oh my God.
I'm a cannonball in the pool kind of guy, right? So I had a big incentive to be successful. I had a mortgage now all of a sudden. And so I course correct all the time. And so, yeah, my ability to do that came from a realization that I got from, I think it was actually some of Gregg Braden's work, where he talks about the ancient language of God, which is a prayer being and it doesn't matter if you're religious or not, but just this ancient language to your deity, your God. It's not words. It's not language. It is a feeling, and we've all probably heard of Feeling is the Secret, which is a very short little story. I highly recommend Feeling is the Secret. Mm-hmm. And I think it's Neville Goddard, I think, is who writes that. Feeling is the Secret. Anyway, it literally is the secret, because the feeling portion of the experience, it houses itself in the body. And so thought is to the brain as emotion and feeling is to the body, and it enriches the experience of life, right? Those two together give you like an experience. And once you have an experience, you can't unexperience it, right? So I often say to people, you can't untaste the orange juice, right? So you can't unexperience something. Now, you don't have to rehearse it over and over so that you keep coming back with the same old results, especially if it's traumatic. You don't have to keep rehearsing it, but it's still there. We just prune the synaptic connections that rehearse it, and then we build new synaptic connections that get beyond it, if that's what we want to do. So throughout my day, I've come up with this awareness piece, a portion of me that literally kind of hovers in the alpha state, that sits there and looks at Ken, like what he's doing, and takes that moment of pause during every introduction or trigger, and then the full-on experience of it. And there's a pause moment. There's a moment in which something comes up in our lives. There's a trigger, right? And it's usually has some familiar flavor to it, because, by about our mid-30s, we've probably experienced every type of emotional interaction. And so now it's built into the body, and the body is simply a record of the past. And all we need is a trigger. Right. And suddenly we're able to be full on in the experience, the old blue car syndrome, right? You see or something that triggers a memory, a song, and you remember an old girlfriend or old boyfriend. So when we're wandering through our day, one of my favorite tools is curiosity, and my body tells me something. If we're aware of it, if we pay attention, your body is always telling you things from minor sensations to what's called gross sensations. And gross doesn't mean vulgar; it just means highly charged sensations. And so, you get a little twinge in your right shoulder blade or something, and you just pay attention to it. Not that it has to steer you into any action, but you just be aware of it. So that's kind of the measuring stick, because we use the body a lot to enrich the experience. But when we're having a bad experience, that's enriching as well. We just tend to try to negate that or medicate that or run away from that. And but it's information. This is all information, and every day, all day, and this takes practice, because we have to get past our own normal routines. But just being aware, trying to be aware of what I'm feeling, and then pause for just a moment to give me a choice point to what I do with it, right? So that's a huge, to me, that's been gold.
Yeah, because many people do that, will do that naturally, because say for instance, if you're at work and you can't say what you really want to say, so you're pausing, right? And you're realizing, oh, I can't say this because otherwise I can get fired or whatever. And then you have a time to reflect about it, and then maybe change your mind about it later on down the road. So that's kind of what you're doing constantly throughout the day then. Throughout the day,
yeah. And then at the end of the day, you take a look at how well you did. What did I do well, and what would I do differently? Like you said, something at work where you have to pause. We don't want to stifle or push things down, because you're too much of that, and suddenly you're creating a lot of toxic burden on the body.
Mm-hmm.
but there's got to be ways in which you can, if someone angers you, to say, well, what, again, digging deeper into that, well, what actually has triggered the anger? It's normally some reflection of ourself being mirrored back to us from the environment. So that's good cause for pause and good cause for understanding. So that's, but I don't tell, most of the folks that I work with, unless it's an anger management ritual we're working on, then to express it in some other fashion, man, yeah, that's gold.
So tell me a little bit about the cells and how they work together. And I'm just so fascinated about the body and how it works. And I know you know a lot about this, so you can just help people out with that.
Yeah, that's an awesome topic. It's probably my favorite. 100 trillion cells sitting here, all operating in concert. I mean, have you ever been in a meeting where 5 people agreed on something? I mean, let alone 100 trillion cells trying to agree in unison. I mean, really. I don't know if you've ever been in part of any of these committees, or I've been part of many community committees, and like you get more than 2 people together and it's going to take all day to figure out an answer. So here we have 100 trillion, 70 to 100 trillion cells sitting here, concert, right? And how is it that even our mother would recognize us from being a baby to this adult person? And yet we've maybe lost some of our hair, or we've gotten a little bit gray, or we've added a little weight or subtracted a little weight. We've changed our body definition, yet we're recognizable as this person. How's that possible? Well, it's possible because there's a code. Each one of us have a code, and that code lives in every cell of our body, and that's the genetic code. And that code, it's not just ours. I mean, it's a 200,000-year-old species of code. It lives within that code, every bit of it, all the history. We could take one human being and one cell and reproduce this species, right? It's like, what?
That's crazy. That's mind-blowing for sure.
And the genetic code, it's this teeniest little thing. And yet it's got such tremendous information in it. And at once upon a time, it was believed that over 95% of that code was junk DNA, right? That's what they thought. It was like, because how could you could have, so many codes, but very few proteins, right? It's like, so it must be junk, right? All these codes must be junk and useless. We only need so many to build the proteins of our body. And yet we have all this genetic stuff. Well, the truth is that...
Well, but maybe they thought it was junk because they didn't know anything else, right?
See? is not bliss. The truth of that is that other 95% of that code is actually more of an antenna. It's more of a receiver, because if you take a mother that's going to have a child, and you put that mother in a very calm, surreal environment, the child is already becoming genetically ready and engineered for that environment. Yep, there is some codes written about whether it's a male or female, the certain characteristics from the family tree, those kind of things. But it's got to be the child, while it's there within the host, has got to be prepared for its environment. Take the same conditions and put this mother in a very violent environment of war and chaos and disorder, and the 2 children that are born in those 2 environments are genetically ready for their environment without even experiencing the outside world yet. How's that possible? Well, it's because of the information field that is surrounding all things. And it's influencing the preparedness of that fetus to be born and survive in its world. And that's what's happening to us all the time. The mirror neurons within our body are always evaluating the conditions and the environment and making sure that we meld with that environment. And I mean, there's so many things you can do. Even, I mean, if you've ever just been sitting quietly with someone and start mirroring their breath rate, their breathing, just start mirroring it, and you'll actually see and then once you mirror it, and you can adjust your breath rate, and you'll see they actually will start to mirror it unconsciously. It just starts to happen because that's the purpose of the mirror neurons. It's part of the whole vagus nerve system, which is the most complex system of nerves within our body that regulates sympathetic and parasympathetic systems, which is rest and digest or fight or flight. It's that whole system, and it uses the outside environment as its influence, and the body is essentially the medium in which that's transmitted back and forth, or what Bruce Lipton calls the culture medium,
right,
of the cells. So the cells become super influenced by its medium, aka the body, and the body then becomes super influenced by the environment and how it's whatever's going on. So when we get on board with the 6 o'clock news every day, and
no, thank you.
or we get on board with the chatter at the water cooler at work, and the gossip and the things, whatever we're getting on board with, and then there's an equation that says you're the sum total of the 5 people you hang around with the most, and that's just because of the environment. And we put value on our environment, and then the higher the value on the environment, the higher the influence on the body, and therefore the higher influence on the internal state or the cells themselves.
So this is when people are so worried about what other people think about them. Yeah,
100%. When you are, and here's another thing about environment. That let's just go to the water cooler for a second, and let's say you have a company party. Everybody's Friday night company party. Everybody gets a little crazy, and somebody does something stupid, and everybody's bearing witness to that. And the next day, that person's maybe not at work because they're embarrassed, but yet the water cooler chatter about that person is degrading. It is insulting. It is all the things. And because each one of those participants at the water cooler has a mental and aka physical awareness of this absent person, the person that's not there, they are all building an energetic expression around whatever they're feeling. And if they're feeling anger towards this person, or they're feeling embarrassment towards this person, that energy is going into the information field. And if you have 5 or 6 people standing around the water cooler gossiping or bad-mouthing another person, the other person doesn't have to be present to feel the experience. And their field is influenced by that experience. And they may be home hungover, and I promise you that influence is making it even worse, right? Their internal state is a reflection of this energetic expression that's all around them. And there's a field that we have dismissed. Used to be, that ancient traditions, and it still happens, but we honored a field of information. It is all around us. It is all within us. It is at the energy level. There's this common denominator within an energetic expression of energy, and it just shifts and changes by frequency. So everything is energy, all the way down from the cell to the molecules of the table that we're sitting at, to even what they call within the ether or the plasmic field, which is in the oxygen cells or the oxygen molecules. It's all connected, and we're breathing in oxygen, the same oxygen that the dinosaurs breathed in a long time ago. Mm-hmm. So there's this plethora of connection amongst everything. And so understanding that energetic field, we can influence it. And we do, just by our words, just by our actions, by our feelings, and then it can influence us. So that's a very tremendous understanding. It's been forgotten these days. It's been forgotten, but it's in every single one of us. And the more we start to research that and start to practice some of the old traditions, And now we have actually new technology. It's even promoting energetic influences and connections, and starting to get on board with the cells just from the energy field, right? Just from the energy field.
So how can we be greater than our environment if our environment has that negative type energy?
Yeah, that's the most people feel like they're a victim, right? Held hostage by the environment, by their thoughts, by all the things that they feel they have no control over. And the bottom line is the one thing we do have control over is the biggest power we have, and that's our thought. So we look at our environment and we make up a belief about it. You know, I don't have enough money, or my relationship sucks, or my body's horrible. We make up a belief about it. So we look in the mirror and we see a body that's a certain composition, and there we go. There's our validation. My body sucks. Now, we don't have to validate that. We don't have to agree with that thought. And yet, if we do, we're simply promoting the same outcome over and over again. Now, if we looked in the mirror and we changed one little thing about that, like instead of saying, I hate my body, just simply agree with, I have a body. That's an appreciation. That's a gratitude. I can actually navigate. I can stand. My eyes work. I can see. I can move my hands. So now we start to build a gratitude around just that body. Now that body starts to feel grateful for us. And then there's a partnership that starts to build. Now that's getting beyond the environment. So in one scenario, we didn't like what we saw in the mirror. Mm-hmm. The other scenario, we were in partnership with what we saw in the mirror. And the two different scenarios, to the tune of 800,000 cells per second, create a new biology. So every second, you and I sitting here, 800,000 cells are dying and reproducing, right? Under what? Under the current energetic expression of our thoughts, our emotions, and our beliefs. So if we sat there in that mirror for 10 seconds, just being grateful for the body, 800,000 times 10.
Oh yeah. It's huge.
It's huge. And some of those cells, obviously, they're, stomach lining cells about every 7 days, they turn over. Muscle cells about every 200 days. Brain cells about every year. Bone, 5-7 years. But still, 800,000 per second are turning over. And
of course, it helps what you eat and that you sleep, and eating healthy, drinking water, those crazy things that people talk about all the time, moving your body.
Yeah, there was something I learned 2 years ago in Spain. It was one of Dr. Joe's events. It was the first 7-day event he did. It was in Tarragona, Spain. It was January 2 years ago. And I learned something interesting in that event. So it was 1,100 people. I got to a point, and I had a very, very clear intention. I have 4 very clear intentions when I went there around abundance in 4 different categories. And that's the key, to set an intention and then put yourself in an environment where you can enhance your own energy. And I had 1,100 people enhancing my energy, right?
I did too. I went to the one in Canada. It was amazing.
You can't, it's like you can't reproduce that energy anywhere else by yourself. It's a compound effort. And so I left, I was gone for 12 days from my 3D environment. And when I came back, my body, and I didn't know any of this, my body had liberated 18 pounds. 12 days.
Wow. And you were in Spain. I was eating pasta, right?
When in Spain, do as what? Spaniards, right? They drink wine with every meal. They have pastas. There's pasta and everything. And there's, oh my gosh, the bakeries. There is a little bakery, a little private mom and pop bakery on every corner. Mm-hmm. I fell in love with these little chocolate croissant things. I was like, And so, well, what happened? Why did my body liberate 18 pounds? Well, remember I told you, Army, martial arts instructor, business owner, competitive, very, very, and I knew there was something not right, but I mean, that's just how I was built. And so it took a while for me to unwire that. Well, that was the breaking point, was when I had that number of people. I finally surrendered that last part, which one of my clear intentions was abundance in health in the body. And my body loses 18 pounds. I mean, that doesn't seem healthy. But what it was losing was muscle, was toxins, was systems that were built under a competitive mindset. And when I raised my energy from competition, anger, frustration, and force to love, joy, and gratitude, what doesn't fit gets liberated. And that happened. That happened in 1 week. And I came back in my environment. Everybody in my environment thought I had cancer. They thought I was dying. They thought, what is wrong with you? I have a personal trainer that I trained with every week. And when I came back, I couldn't do the same lifting that I could when I left. So when I raised my energy, what no longer fit that signature was gone. It wasn't like I knew where it went. I didn't see it sitting over here on the desk or anything. Just energy is energy. It's always balancing and moving and changing and shifting. I just gave it to somebody else. Right. So
how did you change your, how you were exercising to when you got back? I mean, what were you doing before? And then how did you change that? I'm curious.
Yeah. So I have been an experiment for quite some time. My exercise program was pretty intense and, consuming. And so I started changing some of the things I was doing, my exercise routines, just to more resistance training, more diligence in terms of muscle movement and how, your muscle is your best friend. So the more you work that, the better. And of course, my belief structure was all about nutrition, and that I had to do a certain nutrition regimen and a certain exercise in order to get the outcome. Well, Spain taught me a lot of things different. After that, I started to reduce my exercise program. Didn't change my nutritional protocols, but I started changing my exercise programs from, an hour per day to 30 minutes 3 times a week. And my strength continued to build. I still kept going up and up. And I hired a trainer, so I have a
So you went from an hour a day to 30 minutes 3 times a week.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. That's quite a bit of a difference. Okay.
I slowly dropped it down. I was 5 days a week. I remember my martial arts was part of that too. Then I dropped it down to 4, then to 3, which was including my martial arts practice. Because I trained 3 days a week, for 2 hours, in my martial arts practice. And then I started drilling it down even more, to where I actually retired from the martial arts, from that training. And I just went to, just doing the resistance training for 30 minutes. Well, actually it was 40 minutes then. Then I went down to just 3 days a week, 30 minutes. And then I dropped it down to 2 days a week, 30 minutes. And my numbers and my strength, everything kept going up. Now remember, this is after Spain. What did I liberate? I liberated consuming competitive tissues, right? So the more efficient you become, and when I say efficient, I'm not talking about how much you sleep or how much, I'm just talking about what kind of energy is being consumed within the body. What energy? Is it grateful energy, or is it competitive energy? Is it energy, or is it blissful energy? Energy is energy, and some of it's just more consuming than others. Some of it is coherent, and some of it's incoherent. So that was the key. I started creating coherent energy, and coherent energy has like an infinite fold influence on you. I mean, it's I don't know if you can measure it. Incoherent energy has a very measurable influence on you, and when you liberate incoherent energy, that energy crossed the threshold of coherence. Now, one little molecule of incoherent energy becomes almost infinite amount of coherent energy, almost infinite. And so it doesn't take a lot of like just being more grateful. It doesn't take a lot of that to actually sway things over. And what I usually tell people is that it's just as important as what you don't do anymore as what you do now. So if you just stop complaining more, if you stop being part of a chaos and disorder, that liberation alone starts to make a big difference. And that changed the way I worked out. It changed the way my body responded. And then I started experimenting with food. How important? Well, remember, 18 pounds, drinking wine, eating pastries and pasta, and I still lost 18 pounds. I'm like, okay, let's experiment.
That's a pretty good experiment right there.
Yeah. And so I've been playing with nutrition. And again, you can't just stop doing something without there's work to be done. You really have to, when you're working in the fields of energy, you need to be diligent. You can't say you want to think positive and then be angry at the person that cut you off in traffic. You can't live that. The body's precognitive. It knows whether you're full of crap or not. It knows, the body's precognitive. So it understands how to prepare for your actions and your belief structures. So you've got to really put this in play. You got to believe it. And if you don't believe it, then you got to figure out a way to believe it. And there's a process I call piggybacking, whereas if you've ever had a scenario in your life where you experienced something with full bliss, with full love, with full gratitude, with full joy, it's yours forever. You can't untaste the orange juice, like I said. All you have to do is bring it out, piggyback it on a moment in time in which is not serving you, and shift that present moment. But you've got to be aware of those tools in your arsenal. You've got to choose to bring them up. You have to practice. It takes some practice. And suddenly you are the driver of the ship, 100%.
Absolutely. That is so important. Absolutely.
Yep.
Now you're talking about coherence and, changing your energy. So how, I know you can do that with the meditations, because Dr. Joe is like, it's just amazing, his guided meditations and the music and the way that he talks. And it really gets you to a space of nowhere, nothing, nobody, no time, that sort of thing.
Yes.
But is there an easier way to do that with the frequency?
Yeah, so energy, the natural state of the body is homeostasis. It wants to be healthy. It wants to be balanced. It really does want to serve you well. That's, again, a 200,000-year-old species. It knows how to operate in its environment. It's just that we do so many things to knock it out of balance. So we can go back into balance with meditation, like you mentioned, yoga practices, time in nature, grounding, breathing, all that kind of stuff. The truth of the matter is we live in, the 20th century, and people are going to work. We have cities we live in. We have a lot of stress and hastiness. Is that a word? Hastiness? I don't know. And as a result, we don't get to some people don't do their meditation practice religiously. Some people don't go to their yoga practice all the time. Some people don't have self-regulatory systems that they operate when they see an email that pops up on their screen. So there are hacks. There are biohacks, which are that we can use today. Now, breathing is the number one way that I can recenter anybody. So if I can teach someone how to breathe in a certain method that sways the vagal nerve, the vagal response, right over into getting it out of the stress response and into the rest response. And that's just breath alone. But again, it's a practice you have to do. So there's a new technology. There is a new system, energy frequency technology. And these are frequencies that have been tested, that have been proven, that will align and to correct incoherence. And how do you do that? Well, if you take a pond that's perfectly still and you drop a pebble in that pond, there's a ripple effect that goes outward. And if you were to drop another pebble exactly in the same spot at the exact same time or the right time, the ripples that it creates on pebble number 2 will become in alignment or coherent with the first set of waves. And as a result, they will raise the energy level of that first wave. This is how a tidal wave is made. You get enough coherence in the movement of the water with all of the circumstances, the environmental influences, suddenly the wave gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's the same thing here. We can create a coherent wave around health, order, and alignment in the body. And then the cells will honor that, right? They'll get on board with that, and their energy levels will raise because of the coherent environment. Remember, we talked about environment. Mm-hmm. That is the petri dish, essentially, that's working with the cell. So now we can put that kind of frequency energy right into the body. And then this is a technology that we have now using a microcurrent system which is the carrier wave for very, very precise frequencies for alignment of what? Well, let's just say we're going to work on the skin cells, right? The largest organ on our body. Let's just say that we need to work on the heart. Let's work on the liver. Let's work on emotional baggage, right? That's living within the cells of your body. And it's the cells of your body that store the toxins. What are toxins? The chemicals of our world and the emotions of ourselves. So now we can create coherent energy around the healing part and incoherent energy around the bacterias or the poor emotions or the things that we don't need. So we can upregulate one, downregulate the other. That's epigenetics. Right? Now we're changing the biological signature of every 100 trillion cells in your body. That's super cool.
So what is the name of this wonderful device?
That, my friend, Healy.
Yay!
Little tiny device that has a quantum sensor, which allows it to interface with the quantum field of information and the biological and physical field of matter, and now bridge those two and give us a coherent signal to align what is in the information field about us. Because remember I said, the body, the natural signature, the spiritual signature of us is homeostasis, it's balance. Mm-hmm. But down here into matter, we start operating in this thought process, this cognitive space, and now we're working matter to matter. And if you look around, you could probably find something to matter. So we get on board with that. And what happens? Then the biology suffers. So now we have a little tool. It's portable. It's wearable. We can implement it during all of our activities. We can be working.
So we don't have to be silent in a meditation and doing any of those things.
Right? Yeah. No, you don't. Okay. And of course, does that help? Sure. Do I say you no longer have to meditate? No, I'm not saying that. Mm-hmm. Am I saying that you can just go and eat crappy food all the time? No, I'm not saying that either. What I am saying is when we're already in a position, in a state of incoherence, doesn't matter to what degree, to what level, but when we're in a state of incoherence, it's because of our activities, our beliefs, our perceptions, our current three-dimensional interactions. So all we have to do now is don't change any of that. Let's just implement one operating system that can raise the energy of what you're already doing. Right? Let's just try that. And then when you do that, remember I said, the moment you liberate energy normally held hostage by survival, mm-hmm. and on the other side of the fence to homeostasis and creation, boom, now you feel more like going for a walk, right? Mm-hmm. You feel like taking a vacation, spending more time in nature. Now you feel less a victim and more a creator, right? So this little guy just helps to kind of start the engine, right? Yeah, tune it up a little bit.
And then where did these frequencies come from? How are they created, or how does that work?
Well, everything is frequency.
Right.
Everything, energy, the only thing that separates energy is its frequency, its vibration. And vibration, I'm an electronics engineer. I study wave theory. And so the frequency of something is how quickly it's vibrating, right? And the slower its vibration, the closer to density, the closer to matter. The higher the frequency, the closer to light and beyond. So, so where they come from is from a lifetime of understanding. I mean, everything's frequency. So when we start to study, well, first of all, let's back up a little bit. As we get better and better at peering into the tinier and tinier and the further and further, you know, the better we get at peering into the universe or peering into the very small, we start discovering things. And what we've discovered is quantum physics. You know, quantum physics has said that what happens in the quantum level isn't what we see at the 3D level. And so we can influence at the quantum level and essentially upregulate the entire physical matter of 3D. I mean, now we're peering into multiple dimensions, and there was a mathematician that could prove up to 12 dimensions. And I know as an electronics engineer, if you can prove it mathematically, you can create it electronically. And so with certain sciences, we put together some certain things, and our quantum physicist / monk creator, Marcos Schmika, he has taken these sciences and putting them together in a right fashion to create the quantum sensor, and now build that bridge and get into the essentially the biology of us or anything. Because with the quantum sensor, we can not only influence the energy of our bodies, but we can influence the energy of our pet, the energy of our plants, the energy of our house, our buildings, our cars, structures. There's no limit to what we can influence with proper frequencies. And where they came from, I mean, there's even Einstein had to kind of go back to school to understand some of the things. He was just like getting these downloads. You know, where was that coming from? That's coming from the information field. And when it's necessary for something to come into our world in this time, in this moment, then there's going to be someone that's going to get a download. And where does that come from? And you can call it God, you can call it the matrix, you can call it the information field, you can call it whatever you want. The point is, everything we have up to this moment in time, from technology to biology, is because of a download, an idea, right? And I call ideas a gift from God. If I act upon them, then there's going to be some benefit to humanity. If I don't act upon them, somebody else will, because it's supposed to. So Marcos, you know, he took all these various sciences, put them together, the download that had to happen. Interestingly enough, in that meditation, or in a meditation in Spain, that one January, one of the pineal gland meditations, the 4-hour meditations we're in, this technology.
Oh, I remember that. That was so amazing.
Yep. Those 4-hour meditations, you know, people go 4 hours. I mean, I just get into the state, and all of a sudden he's like, okay, when you're ready, come back to your body.
No, I don't want to.
No, I'm not ready. And then he's waking everybody. He's like, man, how was that? Everybody's like, great. Okay, so I want you all to come back at 8:35. We'd start at 4 in the morning. I'm like, wait a minute. Whoa, hold on a second. 4 hours.
It was timeless. For sure.
It's crazy. So that's a cool state to be in, right? And when you're in that state, the downloads, there's no separation between the subconscious or the information field and your consciousness. It's all one. So what do you get? Well, it's relative to you, but it's always something. And I got this technology then in that meditation, but I did nothing with it. So somebody had to, and now it's here, and now we've got this technology.
So you saw this in your meditation?
I did. What I saw in my meditation, and again, being an engineer, I understand how there's different devices out there that can monitor biorhythmic information, you know, things about your body. You've got everything from the Walk Fit to, or the Fitbit thing to heart rate variability stuff. And I thought, you know, in my meditation, there was a device that, like I said earlier, sometimes you just know something's off, but you can't put your finger on it. Well, there was this device that when I knew something was off, I didn't have to put my finger on it. I just looked at this watch, and I could look at my watch and I could say, oh, wow, my cortisol is off. Okay, what do I need to do? I could just dial in some stuff and rebalance me, right? I still had to do some kind of work, but at least I knew it was wrong. And I'm a do, evaluate, course correct kind of guy. So there was this watch. It was super cool. And I came out of that meditation just so excited that I was going to invent this thing.
That's amazing.
So, and I actually did nothing with it. But fast forward 2 years later, one of my soul brothers in Australia that I had told this meditation to, he calls me up and says, hey, remember that technology you were talking about a couple years ago? I'm like, yeah. He goes, it's here. And so I said, well, wait, tell me about it. So he told me about Marcos first, because he knew my brain. He's like, tell me about Marcos, the scientist. And so I started researching him. And he said, oh yeah, by the way, there's a watch. I was like, okay. It's like, wow, there's a watch too that goes with this. Okay. So it all came to me then. So I already had a lot of understanding around this technology and a lot of believability around it. And so all I had to do is get my hands on it and start experimenting with my own self. And that's what I've been doing.
So how has that transformed your meditations?
It's funny because my meditations are so much easier, honestly. I mean, to drop into a state is like effortless. I don't, I feel like I'm kind of bridging that gap all the time anyway now. Had some tests. I've done some experiments because with this device, we have, there's over 15 pages of programs. When I say pages, there's like 15 categories or files on this device that are of specific categories. And so you've got a chakra page. So there's all 7 traditional energy centers of the body that's on that page. So you could run a program from that page that's around, say, the heart chakra, right? Or you can say the crown chakra, or whatever you want to promote. And it's the frequencies. And remember, the body is separated into these 7 centers based on the center's purpose, as well as a frequency of light. So, and again, being an engineer, I understand wave theory from the frequency of light between infrared and ultraviolet. Infrared being the slowest frequency of light, ultraviolet being the fastest frequency of light, therefore also corresponding with the root chakra all the way to the crown. Infrared, red, all the way up to crown, purple, which corresponds to the 7 colors of a rainbow, right?
Well, that's so fascinating because I was so enthralled as a kid with the color purple.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. It's great information, Ken.
The highest frequency of light is purple. Yeah. And you notice if you look at a rainbow, it's always at the top, right? It's always, right. And that's why. So, and you take a light and run it through a prism, a triangular shaped crystal. And the reason it comes out different colors is because the base of the triangle is wider. And so the distance for the light to travel through that slows it down. So you get red color out of it. At the top of the crystal, the light going through that is faster. So you're going to get purple. And that's how you get the rainbows out of these crystalline structures. So anyway, the, where these frequencies just correspond to, those areas of our body and then the cell structures within the body. This whole system is all based on, well, it's like you could reverse engineer things. The body always, as we peer deeper and deeper into the body, we learn new stuff. And so if we just knew everything about the body, man, we could reverse engineer everything, anything. We can't peer far enough yet. We're still there. We're still getting into there. The answers are always.
When you ran the chakra scan on myself, it immediately popped up to what was something that I really needed to look at in my life, and was always there. It's been there for many years, which was so fascinating. So I knew right then and there that it was connected to the information field, and that it was very objective, because you don't know me from that way at all. So it's like, whoa.
Yep. Yep.
And then when you were running to see what specific frequencies that I needed through that whole process, and then you were sending to one, 5 of them at once to me each day, there was huge shifts going on for me, huge shifts. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. And your part, I mean, there's a part you have to play. I mean, we can't just lay back and take a nap, right? There's a part
No.
we have to do, and that's surrender. We have to be willing to receive as well as willing to surrender into the information field. And if we do that, if we're good at that, well, you don't even have to be really good at that, but you just have to at least be willing. And then suddenly you'll get a whole lot more out of it. And just taking it as information, because in the quantum field, life and death are just information. They're not, there's no judgment against it. There's no cognitive bias for it. It's just information. And we, as the human consciousness, we put bias, we put intellect, we put judgment on everything. And suddenly we have an opinion. This system has no opinion. It's just an objective look. And if we accept it, we'll get the benefit. And if we don't.
What I'm thinking here is what it's doing is it's changing the information in your field, but it's changing the information so that you have a different experience. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we have a blueprint. We have a blueprint of us, the best version of us that lives in the information field. When we come down to density, we change that. How do we do that? Well, this big old frontal lobe, right? We start to the analytics and the things that of our environment that offer us valid reasons to be angry, valid reasons to feel lack, valid reasons. But then we have a choice point to get on board with them, and we do. We get on board with it, and then that changes our biology. All right. It doesn't mean that the information field has that same imprint of us. It doesn't. It's still the best version of us. It's just that we are the one changing it at this level of density, at this 3D level. So when we send a stronger signature to the field, the blueprint that's there lights up, and it says, now, I'm going to give it to you stronger. So that blueprint is just sitting there. It's just influencing our information field stronger and stronger, not just from the blueprint, but also all around us. And so now we have like a bubble of influence that's starting to enhance our biology. And that's just the remote side. That's just the non-local side, right? That's just how the device itself has what's called a noise generator in it. And the noise generator is essentially simply a noise generator is just something that emits a frequency, right? A flashlight is a noise generator. It emits a frequency of light, so it's a noise generator. A speaker in your stereo system, your car, whatever, is a noise generator, not because you can hear it, but because it's putting out a frequency in the spectrum of sound. So this has a noise generator that operates anywhere from 0.5 hertz to millions of hertz. And so the program, Healy's programs, dictates what frequencies are being sent out of the noise generator, as well as what frequencies are putting on the carrier wave that goes out of the microcurrent of the ports of this device that goes into your body. So there's a twofold system here. With the remote system, then we can send that into the information field non-local, like you and I. We weren't in the same house. We weren't even in the same city, same zip code.
Yeah.
And with this with people that were not even on the same time zone, right? I've done it with West Coast, East Coast, another continent, and it doesn't matter. It's the same because we're working with the information field. So I can do that and give a person a great influence. Now, the other side of the coin is if you do have the device in your 3D space, you can also connect to the electrodes, put these same frequencies into your body via the microcurrent. And not only are you getting it in your information field all around you and within the matrix or the blueprint, but now what's happening is the microcurrent is sending the same things to your systems, tissues, cells, and organs. But because it's a microcurrent, it's up in the ATP production of the cell. It's increasing the amino acid transport. I mean, it's doing things at the physical level of the cell. And so you're getting kind of a twofold scenario, right?
So what's fascinating is when you sent me, there was a fitness program that you sent me. And the next day I felt a little bit more energetic. But what's fascinating now is that this week I've had the motivation to go exercise and work out, go outside and go for long walks and go up these hills and that sort of thing, which I have not had for many, many months, years. And so that was huge for me. And then there was another time where you sent the sleep program to me right before I went to sleep, which was very awesome. And I slept so deep. I had so many dreams and I woke up just feeling so refreshed. And this is just the one time you sent it to me for like an hour or something. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And this was remote.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that,
we were not local. Yeah.
No, not at all.
But
the cranial stimulation, one of those frequencies you sent me, I felt like I was just like on a beach with the clear blue, like somewhere in Bali, sitting there just enjoying life, maybe, snorkeling, which is something I love to do. I swear to God, I felt like my whole body was so relaxed and so light. It was truly incredible.
Yeah.
It was an incredible experience.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of this is, I firmly believe that, my mission, and with my entire team, is to create a healing centered consciousness. And we're literally able, as we start to put the blueprint or adjust the blueprint in the field for you or for me or for anyone, we're starting to get on board with a consciousness that is no longer in a condition of suffering. It's in a condition of snorkeling on the beach. And that feeds the field in a different way. We're feeding the right wolf, per se. And if more and more people do this, just like the other way, more and more people are getting on board with war and destruction and evil, of course that's going to have an influence. And even the people that are not evil are starting to be influenced by that same outcome. So now we can switch it, and it's time. It's time. Yeah. We are in a moment of time in which I believe that our species is ready to make some shifts. And we just launched this technology in May, the 1st of May. And we went from 0 to hero in 30 days. I mean, $9 million, nearly $9 million in a month. We went to, from no influence within the company, the worldwide company. This is already open in 40 plus other countries. We went from a 0 representation to 80% of the entire company's income in 1 month. 80%. That's amazing.
You mean just in the U.S. alone?
Just from the U.S. revenue. Just the U.S. revenue. So
even though we're going through all this right now, people are still, that's amazing that they're still wanting to purchase it. And
yeah, think about it. We had $11 million a month. 9 million of it was U.S. Okay.
Wow.
Do the math. And even in an economic slowdown, or whatever you're calling this, right? Where people are maybe holding on to their money more. And the reason that is, and what that tells me is we're ready. We're ready for something better. We're ready for a new system. We're ready to empower people as opposed to big pharma or whatever.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, we have to be that change agent. We have to be just as they're doing in the riots. We have to be just as enthusiastic with love and light as they are with the anger.
Yeah.
And that's what's changing it. That's what's changing it right now, I believe.
Absolutely. And like I mentioned earlier, when we have energy that liberates from that chaos and disorder, and it transitions over to the line of order and abundance, it's infinitely more powerful. So we can overcome a lot of disorder. And my philosophy and what I tell people is that disorder is simply order waiting for someone's consciousness to observe it. So you can observe disorder into order. How do you do that? Choose it. right? We just need to let go of the evidence we've been seeking around chaos and disorder. Stop seeking that evidence,
Mm-hmm.
and seek the evidence for the other, a place from the heart.
That's a great way to end it. Place from the heart.
I love it.
This has been quite a remarkable conversation. I've learned so much from you, Ken, and thank you for all that you do and all that you are and all that you contribute to this amazing community. And if anybody wants to try out this amazing device and get that effect of wonderment and beauty and love and abundance and whatever else that you're wanting, I highly recommend it. And there'll be a link below. You can click on that link and we'll schedule a session for you. And we'll be glad to help you through that process each step of the way, right?
Isn't that awesome? Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. And
all right.
And thank you very much for spreading the word.
All right, Ken. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.